Hey everyone, welcome to another Mix and Mash Battle Lounge with the 2MK team. Today we are moving around between battle lounges, so you won't be able to find us in our usual place, at least not right now. And as you can probably hear from my voice, I have congestion again. But this fact that we have joined these particular lounges today means that you're going to see a lot more different styles of play, lots of high level play, and also I'm not going to have as much to say both because I'm congested and because they aren't team members mostly, and even though I do normally comment on other people's play a little bit, this isn't always the best thing to do because I don't necessarily understand their specific plans. I end up commenting on things that aren't working. So, if I'm quiet for quite a while, it's probably because everyone is doing exactly what they intend.
Round two. Fight! Necalli wins. Round one. Fight! Round two. Fight! Final round. Fight! wins. Round one. Fight! Round two. Fight! Necalli wins. Let's do this. Round one. Fight! Round 2. Fight! Final round. Fight! Zeku wins. Round 1. Fight! Round 2. Fight! Zeku wins. Let's do this. Necalli wins. Round one. Fight!
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? I've got no choice. I've got no choice. See ya! Done, done. See ya! I hate you!
Round two. Fight!
I've got no choice! Or you can... I hate you!
Necalli wins. It's go time. Let's do this. Harin Kanzuki. Zeku.
Allow me a moment to entertain you.
Well, while this isn't a familiar matchup in general,
Round
we
one.
have discussed it, probably on stream before, possibly against this very player. Zeku is relatively difficult for our Karin at least to beat if she spends too much time trying to hit him, because Zeku is by nature very hard to hit. This is the sign of the character. This makes it generally difficult for her because, as we've mentioned already, she's not the most patient of people, and patience isn't exactly what you need here either. Zeku is one of those characters whose turn comes up, let's say, more often than others. And you can't easily mess him up by trying to just keep on hitting him until yours is over. He has lots of range and doesn't care about the fact that your turn is over in the way that you normally think about it. But you can handle the character from her perspective without having to think constantly about this, if you just let yourself breathe a lot. He's not necessarily going to overwhelm you most of the time,
despite the feeling that you can't get in on him, that you can't do anything, always remember when you play characters like Karine or Laura or whatever, you have a lot of damage at your disposal. The main thing you're trying to work on is, do I have enough meter or positioning to do this damage? When you don't go in, don't push too hard on Zeku. For one thing, I'll remind everyone that just blocking hits gets V-meter. And it's often quite a lot of V-meter, especially for specials. So, especially early in the round when you don't have V-meter yet but could use it for something pretty soon, it's easier to just let it build up, rather than trying really hard to get it at the beginning, ending up with a ton of V-meter in this situation, and having difficulty putting it out or making sure you have everything you need. Zeku tends to play a slower paced game in the first place, so if you can get him to spend the early parts of the match, especially in this situation where he already has full meter anyway, you already see that this player has already changed their mindset. They're moving in, they're thinking about how to get to use that meter they got. It's those little things that can actually help a lot. Understanding this part of the matchup is going to change because of something else in the match.
You lose.
And this is precisely what our Zeku bot is for. It looks like the Battle Lounge host has changed again, and that means that match is technically... how does this go again?
It's go time. Let's do this.
So in general, Zeku is a very strategic sort of thing, and that's why the bot is built that way. To get you used to the idea, okay, this part of the situation has changed, and therefore I must change with it. It isn't an uncommon thing to need in games as a generality. In fact, more complex fighting games almost always require it in order for you to actually be good.
Allow me a
Change
moment
the way you're
to
thinking
entertain.
based on what your opponent's meter is, what your opponent's position is, what other things they've done in the match so far, which round it is, and all of those things play out together to give you a game plan. But the ability to change your game plan rapidly is something you have to practice quite a lot.
Round
Fortunately,
one.
this character, we managed to make a bot whose basic purpose is to do the thing, or make you do the thing that you need to do in the matchup. A lot of the time this is about making Zeku think. That, for example, is a perfect jump. Karine spends a lot of this match getting to the right spot and making sure that once she is there, she isn't surprised by anything. Because a good Zeku player will immediately realize, oh, I see where you're going, I should do something. And the something, given that it's Zeku, can be many different things.
Round two. Fight.
For example, that. That is a good response to have for seeing Karine get to her spot. Because she doesn't really have a lot of answers to it. She can tankle under it, she can do some very specific back jump things. But overall, that's what you're looking for. She has gotten to this spot and you want to do something with it. Since he has good moves in there too, the dash up helps. Overall, once Karine is in that spot, she's basically thinking to herself, is Zeku going to move? If so, I should hit a button. If Zeku is not going to move, I should probably jump or do whatever my plan is. Another situation, therefore, where getting to your spot is more so a mix-up on yourself than really a thing that will lead to you winning. What's really useful in this matchup, therefore, is moving to your spot when you weren't otherwise needing to. Like right here, where you could keep on pressuring and hitting buttons, The answer is often, no, I'm going to take that and move to my spot, and as a result have all sorts of optimal situations for myself. Because still, just as Zeku has many things Zeku can do, Karin has many things Karin can
You
do.
win.
Meteor obviously helps, as does reacting quickly enough to Zeku's movement. But the bot alone can teach you to just see Zeku's moves enough to get where you need to be.
Round one.
This doesn't actually apply to many other characters. There aren't a lot of other characters for whom the best option is just to never necessarily pressure, just move to your spot and stay there. Because Zeku has so many options. But because Karin is so able to change what she's doing midway, specifically with Tenkos and certain charge levels of Ryoku, etc., she gets to play her way through a lot more situations than the rest of us. This mainly happens, as you've just seen, because Zeku doesn't necessarily have the options Zeku can use. And even that was just a matter of dashing in after sweep and therefore being in trouble. Planting your feet and therefore guarding your own space is something that has come up in discussions of this matchup before, therefore. But the important thing about guarding your own space is a very specific thing. Knowing that you're not in danger. As long as you're not sure whether you're in danger or not, even if it's just like nerves, thinking maybe my opponent can hit me, it actually becomes much harder to defend yourself because you will do more things, and often if you couldn't do those things perfectly, or if your opponent guessed even incorrectly, it becomes more difficult to get away from whatever it is they want to do. Very oppressive characters just hit buttons no matter what. Get out of this, Yuri, for example, can handle this matchup that way, but Karin basically cannot. Therefore, a lot of this is just understanding I'm not in danger, I can just not do anything for a little bit. Got away with that, man. I was not sure if they were going to go for an attack on that jump. But as long as this player is willing to keep playing, regardless of their character, their style of play puts our Karin back in her usual flow. Having to learn to calm down enough to just be okay with wherever she is. You can practice this on your Nash bot if you don't have Zeku. Not necessarily easily, but you can definitely do it. If your Nash bot is particularly good. Nash's bot is unfortunately relatively hard to input and therefore can result in difficulty. Part of the reason why this is useful is that you don't really have to anti your Zeku most of the time. And because he gives you so long as a character to figure out whether or not you're in danger from the jump, you can sometimes just block it. He's not super good at pressure, especially not with these setups. So, a lot of the time, you can just go, oh, no, I'm fine. It's just not concerning to me that you're standing there. And instead of bothering to stress yourself out with the anti-air, just don't do it.
You lose. Let's do this. Round one. Fight!
Oh, different Dan. In my experience and understanding, this matchup is fairly swingy and let's call it lopsided. But it's not always lopsided in the same direction. Once Dan gets relatively close, Zeku's a little bit strained. Dan's pressure can be things that Zeku, based on like directions of attacks and hitboxes, can't quickly deal with. But similarly, Dan isn't really great at getting in on Zeku in the first place. Just jumping is honestly a pretty gutsy and probably correct at certain levels way of doing this, simply because Dan isn't really trying to jump in and get the jump in or get a great jumping combo. He's just trying to distress the Zeku player out and probably maybe just land closer sometimes. Which leaves Zeku in the position unenviably of needing to anti-air with the high version of ground. You have barely enough time to do this most of the time, but if Dan is slightly too close, then you can't, and you have to realize that's your situation. And do things like that. Similarly, since Dan doesn't care in the same way as most characters, the Dan player is unlikely to ever really be taking the neutral seriously in the way you expect. Not every movement from them is likely to be, I'm actually trying to get in. Desperate tactics, huh?
Round one. Fight!
One of Dan's other problems is that as a character he doesn't have any really good I'm going under stuff buttons that actually help him advance or even really pose a real threat. Leading to heavy anti-air ground being good enough opening gambit for Zeku. I'm not sure Dan even has a thing that beats this. I mean, obviously blocking, but you're already far away, it's not like it helps. One thing that does make Zeku's job a little easier in this matchup is that this form of Dan at least can't build up more than one V reversal. the price paid for the incredible power of the Howl Hadouken.
Zeku wins. It's go time. Let's do this. Harin Kanzuki. Zeku.
Allow me a moment to entertain you.
Round one. Fight.
Another good layer of this is understanding when what you think is a threat to you isn't. We're literally looking at a ninja character, and they're almost always based on some form of misdirection. Making you think that you're in more danger than you are is among those forms. This can also happen simply because you're used to playing in particular ways though. For example, using the V reversal stops a lot of the things that Zeku does when he finally does get into position to mess with Karin's spacing. And yet for her, it's pretty easy to deal with. Most of the time when you're thinking, I shouldn't V-reversal, I'll get baited, it's because the character in question has a pressure strength. Mainly because if they don't have an actual pressure strength and they're just like doing moves in neutral that you happen to have to block and then end up far from or something, you don't care anymore. You just V-reversal that immediately. This, for example, was a winning position total. But that is a moment where you absolutely can just V-reversal if you want to. Deal with the fact that Zeku was coming at you and then wasn't. Because Zeku can't throw you if you V-reversal those mediums.
You lose. Round one.
This of course doesn't apply to characters whose V-reversals are just repositioning, but we're not talking about one of those character types. AKA the dog moment. In fact, one of the largest problems in this matchup right now is that Karin is actually giving up her position to do Mayoken. But this is again habitual, because in that position against nearly everyone else, you want to do Mayoken. They don't want to hit buttons, so you hit Mayoken because it puts you in a good position, closer to them, and that's where you want to be. Against Zeku, that's not where you want to be, so there's no point in the Mayoken.
Round two. Fight.
but it looks like Panic set in at the end.
You lose. It's go time. Let's do this. Harin Kanzuki.
風間明行きます。 Show you the divide in our
Obviously, you've seen this matchup before.
Fight.
There we go. This is another matchup where it's very important to know exactly when or what to view reversal. And of course, above all else, to understand that because Karin is not so great at anti-airing, once Akira is in the jump position, you are in some form of danger.
Round 2. Fight.
This character's cross-up game against Karin is enough that you have to be ready with the forward dash similar to against Kage. But it doesn't happen every time, so it's not as bad. When you're fighting Kage, you have to forward dash pretty much every time. When you're fighting Akira, you can, sometimes hit your stand light punch or your crouching heavy punch once they're past your head, and depending on the situation they were trying to set up, you might still get them.
Final round. Fight.
Which is a situation, therefore, where you really just have to do your best to forward dash when the time is right. Similarly, just like fighting Ken, Akira is often at spaces where Akira wants to jump to get the cross-up, but Karin has a good enough timing or reason to hit Mayoken. Unlike Ken, who actually probably doesn't have quite enough options though, Akira can do more things to make the Mayoken a bad idea immediately. Meaning that you just still spend most of your time expecting that footsies is a matter of whiff punishing and forward dashing.
You lose.
Fortunately, this matchup can be reduced to that so much that you don't really have to worry about it. Akira's biggest weakness as a character is that her attacks aren't very long range, and the way her movements are means that she doesn't fake you out with her movement. She doesn't hit this button and it have a very slight forward pushback or cancel into something that lets her move forward. She hits you and then that's it. This often means that she puts herself out of the range where she can hit you, similar to Urien, and you just have to probably give.
The hard part of that for certain players, see, that's just letting yourself get frame trapped. Fortunately, she's also a character that, though she does have really good setups and the bot does contain them for the purposes of showing you this, if you are crouch blocking near a hero, you're not really in a lot of danger. And, most importantly, she has one of the weakest backdash chase games in the game. She hurt you, but she's probably going to hurt you way more if you stand there. This isn't to say you should just backdash all the time, but if you reach the point of, yeah, we've been crouching here for a bit, I don't know what to do, the answer is not usually to hit button. It's to backdash out of the situation.
Final round. Fight.
Overall, this applies to nearly every character. Your character's backdash has to be pretty bad before, yeah, we're just kind of standing here, isn't a I should backdash now situation. Or, you know, you're playing someone like Abigail who has so much reach that they don't care about the distance between Akira and them, but their game plan is usually entirely different. There's another good reason why you might want to backdash out earlier rather than later. It's pretty terrible to get yourself in that overhead, because for some reason, I guess because the character is not too common or something, it's relatively hard to react to.
You lose. It's go time. Let's do this.
Looks like they're very busy menuing. So, looks like we get another of these. Oh, it might not be the same character.
Karin Kanzuki. Dan.
Be my rival, and let's do this! Dan Hibiki, back after the ultimate improvement!
Round one. Fight.
Done! See ya! Too close! Or you can... Too close! Too close! No, you don't! I've got no choice!
the untrained player, it might be a little bit hard to tell what went wrong in that match. The sweep.
Round 2.
One of the first things that Karine needs to understand here is that normal footsies is not a thing in this matchup. In order for her to function, she has to get out of the way. And Dan's entire concept of how to fight this matchup, therefore, is I am going to push you to the corner, and you have to deal with it. The better Karine can deal with that part of the situation, the easier it is for her to keep fighting. She has to use her own corner carry, for example, but overall, backdash, because if you don't backdash, you're going to get jumped on, you're going to get hit in all sorts of places. You basically cannot get out of the way fast enough in any other way because Dan moves forward a lot as a character.
This is Secto style. Better remember that.
And this is true for honestly the majority of characters in this game. Dan is not a pressure character in the way that most people would think of him, but he is able to keep hitting you and make it difficult for you to get away unless you have really fast reactions. And because he can vary the things he does, he almost gets to the point of feeling unfair because he has so many moves you basically can't punish. Therefore, any attempt whatsoever at playing footsies of any kind on a footsie character is likely to lead to Dan just throwing out buttons and hitting you. Most importantly, Dan doesn't care that Dan is losing at footsies, because Dan has massive corner carry, fairly good damage, and some of the most annoying tactics possible when it comes to just getting out of position. The main thing you'd want to therefore decide is, what do I want to do? It's very similar to fighting Rashid, for Karine anyway. Mujin Kaku. Lots of them. Because Dan is also not that great at punishing things when they're minus at longer ranges. So if your spacing is good,
Round 2. Fight.
yeah, just throw it out and see what happens, because it will do that. It can stop him from getting in. Which means, honestly, if you were worried that Dan is going to just start doing random things in neutral, well, you can out-random Dan. It's the best deck. But to get into that mindset when the thing you play this game for is to play footsie can be really hard.
You lose.
To honor father, Big Bro will do his best.
Let's do this. Round 1. Fight.
we're going to see some devastating stuff here. Mainly because I think I know this player, and because Urien has one of the highest skill caps in this game. If you've ever thought to yourself, okay, I know how to play Street Fighter now, go try playing Urien for a while and see if you know how to play Street Fighter. There is another relatedly good reason why so many players on the Japanese side tend to have a Urien either secondary or pocket, as they say, even if they don't really take playing Urien that seriously. An overall good character with a massive skill ceiling that can overpower completely players who don't know what's going on, or who just can't keep up with their levels of cognition, let's say. One of the most interesting things about this, though, is that you don't have to actually be that good at fighting in order to deal with this fact. In fact, you probably have better odds if you understand a specific thing than most people do against other characters, because Urien is actually really limited, which is probably why he has that incredible skill ceiling and all that output. A good example is that we keep on pointing on many streams in many situations that Urien doesn't actually have pressure per se. Urien's moves have so much pushback that if you block like 2 hits, you should assume that Urien can't actually hurt you anymore and must walk or something. But if Urien walks, then Urien can run out of options. Easier, literally, to just do
Alex wins.
headbutt, light headbutt, just to move forward. So the key in the case of this character is basically don't be scared of Urien. See how long you can get them to go before they get forced to do something else.
It's go time.
I'm not sure if they're even... is one of those. Hold it. Okay, it looks like they're gonna actually let the match play. Let's go. Maybe. Oh, there we go.
It's go time. Let's do this.
Well, fancy meeting here. As we are more than halfway through the stream, well, 2/3 actually, we have rejoined the wolf side. We don't really have full ideas of how well things went before then, but it looks like we're still seeing some Deku action. Many of the same things apply for Karine as for Necalli, but Necalli has two other options that don't work out as well for Karine to Necalli can burst through Ram if really wants to try, and can put up projectiles of that type to solve problems. And of course, once you're close enough, whereas Karine is usually waiting for Zeku to do something and try, he can go on the offensive more by just doing either open dagger or going for stomp, usually heavy stomp. This is again because of the way the hitboxes on Zeku's moves are. Usually Necalli will not lose in that situation. Unfortunately, Zeku's space control means that Necalli doesn't get to use a lot of the better pushback. Zeku will absolutely happily be pushed out. Ignore him from there.
Final round. Fight.
Looks like the issue here is once again though awareness. Being able to make clear decisions about what to do based on all meters you have available and your opponent has available come up quite a lot here. Okay, given that player's previous activity, I guess they either came back or are about to drop to back and let this be a standard match again. But we'll see. No, they were just away, I guess.
Let's do this.
If they continue playing Zeku, then we'll see more of the same. And if not, we'll still probably see more of the same. Even the best players in the game, after a while, if you get used to analyzing things, you can tell what they are going to play character B or C like based on how they play character A. Sometimes this is misleading because the first character you see them play isn't their main, and I can't even say that Zeku is this player's main, but they've definitely put in enough work on Zeku that has seemingly influenced the way they play other characters.
Round one.
So we're back to planning.
Fight.
of the things that comes up in this matchup a lot once you've got the Zeku player to keep quiet is that you can either Orochi or just empty Sephiroth. And they normally get jumpy as a result of this. And I don't mean jumping into the air. Getting a Zeku player to be jumpy enough for your other tactics to work can be really helpful. Especially because it lets Karin take that micro step forward to hit her heavy punch. But again, this is all about space control. If she ends up too close, nothing works. If she ends up too far, she has to deal with Graham. Fortunately, it's not one of those things that has to take up a lot of your thinking because it's good for other aspects of the matchup too. It gets you away from Mushin Flip, it gets you under Graham at a very specific timing and spacing, and a bunch of other little things that help. So, you can think of it as something that comes up often enough you can just do it. But, unfortunately it's one of those problematic moves. If Zeku is waiting for you, then you're obviously going to get hit or stopped in some way. Which is again why it's a matter of making the Zeku player jumpy enough
Round 1.
to make them want to hit buttons by doing these moves and then using the fact that they want to hit buttons to get something that you want. In Karin's case, this is often as you've just seen her stand heavy kick or her stand heavy punch. Similar to how she deals with Fang. Just, yeah, I'm standing here, you want to hit things, I know, but eventually I'm just going to hit heavy kick. And you have to let me hit heavy kick, because if you don't, something bad is going to happen to you. When Zeku's really far away from you, you generally don't need to bother doing very. You can just walk all the way up to him. And if you feel, oh no, if I walk all I'll get boring. Learning to manipulate your own emotions like this is a really important part of the game. Realizing, I'm scared of two things at once, but it's impossible for them both to be dangerous, so what am I thinking? In fact, if you spend enough time thinking your way through situations in exactly that way, you lose a lot of your fears in the game. This is something most of us experience on Wake Up, but you have to be able to do it at timings other than on Wake Up in so many games that you might as well learn it in this one. And in that case, that was, again, just habit. That one failed on the Mayokin, not because of anything that happened after it. Everything that happened after the Mayokin was basically under Zeku's control.
It's go time. Let's do this. Arena Kali.
I'll show you the divide in our class.
Round 1. Fight.
Let's go ahead and use this matchup as basically the same thing.
Karine can get to the point where she can hit with the tip of her stand medium punch. She's basically a but she can't always get there. That said, if she doesn't, there's basically two things to be worried about. Either Necalli is going to advance, or Necalli is explicitly not going to advance. Your opponent's mindset is either offense or defense time. And both of these things have solutions. They're solutions that generally Necalli doesn't beat by messing with them. Because of the character's buttons and general ways that players tend to think when they're playing Necalli. If they are on defense, you will get a dash for free, and usually try to throw them. See if this helps you. That more so depends on whether or not the player thinks they're fast enough to hit buttons. If they think they could check your dash, then you should hit buttons after dashing, maybe because you might catch them. If you think they're going to come forward at you, jump forward, or neutral jump, but usually jump forward, because if you were in a position where jumping forward was going to miss, then you were in position to hit the medium punch you wanted to hit and should have just hit it. Or to stand heavy kick, mostly. That's what tends to make this matchup difficult for the Wolf.
Round one. Fight!
Our Kanzuki is so used to this that there's not a whole lot of danger from that side. It's literally, I've moved to my spot or I've done this thing, and now I'm thinking, are you going back or are you coming forward, and that's it. Now, Necalli can easily deal with this by just not moving at all, and being ready for both things. But, unfortunately, this leads to Karine just getting to stand there, which, you really don't want this. But more importantly, it normally means that Necalli, who cannot necessarily reach, can't do anything if she decides, okay, I'm just going to step forward and get my medium punch spacing then. Which is worse than the other two things. When your reactions get really good, this changes, but not a lot. So from Karine's side, this matchup is basically things repeatedly. And that's how fighting games work in general. Neutral can't be comprised of more than 3 things you need to do for most characters because it just won't work. The game would be too complicated. We'd be Melty Blood or something. Anyway. If Karine finds herself so far out of range that even a dash won't let her get what she wants, she's not often in much danger just like inching her way forward and blocking either, because this guidance doesn't start up that fast. In fact, what you see now, where things are happening and catching is actually working, is mostly a situation of misjudging the spacing for the stand medium punch. If the stand medium punch could hit, their other 2 options don't work as well. They do still work, but the higher level you get and the stronger players you face, the more you have to be able to be sure, oh, I won't reach with this medium punch, I have to use one of my other options. And from the Necalli side, therefore, you're thinking in terms of, what can I do to make her not want to hit any of those? Unfortunately, Necalli is a relatively straightforward character, and there isn't anything Necalli can do to make her not want to hit anything. Necalli therefore instead focuses on getting really big punishes when things don't go well for her. Unfortunately for Necalli, really big punishes is not exactly strong suit yet, so it's less likely to work out.
You lose. Round one. Fight!
One of the important things here, which doesn't really come up because players are used to it, is the ability to cancel sweep. Kareen's ability to do that in this matchup really changes the way she has to deal with problems, because eventually she'll get to a point where hitting sweep is a decent idea, but not a great one. But then she can't just, oh, I have meter, it's fine, I can just do that.
Round two. Fight!
The sweep is doubly helpful because it encourages Necalli to just keep holding down back. And of course, this helps because the longer they do, the easier it is to read whether or not they're likely to be in offense or defense mode at the moment. This, for example, was super risky, because it didn't give quite enough of an advantage to make sure that it was going to be something good. And was more so likely to be more stressful than anything.
You win! It's go time!
Looks like we're being thrown back into the pond for the next 15 or so minutes. But there are probably more opponents to fight now.
Let's do this!
Kareen vs Ryu, the classic Season 1 matchup. No longer quite so. But as I know nothing about these players and my voice has turned totally nasal, we're probably going to watch this one quietly.
Round one. Round one. Cammy wins. Round one. Fight! Final round. Fight. Cammy wins.
Well, the only commentary I have on that is this player's misdirection skill is quite high.
Let's do this. Round one.
Looks like they're gonna have to work a little harder this time, because now they're fighting someone who's equally good at and probably familiar with the various misdirections. At this point, camping players usually go for speed, and that's usually a good idea. Just like, don't worry too much about the fact that you're sometimes going to get punished for doing just straight cannon spike, even in neutral. Just do it, it's probably fine. It's more important that you are ready to cannon spike when required, and take a bit of damage when you cannon spike too early or incorrectly. Because you can see here, for example, that just doing cannon spike now is a solution. Doing it here, also a solution. I'm not sure to do that way. But it's hard to tell because the other way might not have killed on second. Oh well.
Final round. Fight.
Technically, from Kazuki Dynasty's perspective, if we were, for example, in tournament, this is the better matchup. Karine versus Zeku is stressful and painful in particular ways. Cammy versus Zeku can at least be cathartic at some point. If you're losing, you can play riskier, you can play more, you know, crazily or angrily, and if, depending on your opponent, you can throw them off and it will work enough to get you somewhere. But with Karine, if things are going poorly, you become more tense, you have to play even more precisely because you're tense, and it just tends to shut itself down. There we go, first one. In fact, that might be pretty much what we're seeing here. Yep. I can't be sure what this player is thinking, but I can tell you that if I were in their position, I would definitely be thinking, you know what, I'm just gonna hit some stuff and hope that you get hit. And while that's generally not a great way to play out of frustration, you'll definitely find even people like Daigo giving you advice like, yeah, just hit buttons, it's fine. The worst that will happen is that you lose, and you were losing anyway, so... One of the things that would help the most is that Zeku's wake-ups are not that great, and if you did manage to get the cannon spikes, while they don't have the greatest knockdown pressure in the world, they're pretty good, especially EX.
Zeku wins. It's go time.
Which of course leads us to the interesting situation that this is basically probably the last on-stream match of the night. Unless it's like a complete blow-up. And by that I mean a complete blow-up in which she wins. So, is playing Karine going to be the thing she does? Characters that is on, and Karine can be stressful, but this particular Zeku isn't the same type of stressful, so what will happen?
Allow me a moment to entertain you.
Alright, it looks like she's going with the push from before. And unfortunately the game seems to have put us on the worst stage possible for it. Or, depending on how you look at it, the best.
Round one. Fight.
One of the largest problems with this stage is that it actually makes it more and more difficult to judge your spacing on the stage itself, which has more so to do with the fact that you can't measure it based on anything in the background at all. You would have to do it by pure feet, and understanding how to do that isn't something a lot of people spend a lot of time doing. If you've ever wondered why, other than the whole motion sickness thing, someone might say not to play on this stage, that's actually the reason. You can't measure anything in the background. You just have to fight as if, yeah, only what is under my feet matters. Which technically, if you don't get motion sick, gives you a pretty good practice stage for doing that. Unfortunately, it is exactly the reason that other people get motion sick. You're more likely to get motion sick on this stage by playing properly. So you have to take breaks every now and then mentally. This doesn't actually benefit Zeku as much as you'd think though.
I mean, it makes certain of Zeku's moves harder to react to, but mostly only the EX one. And it can therefore put stress on the Zeku player, because they also have difficulty reading their own position. Despite that 2 bars, this is not actually lagging as far as I can see in any way, so we're not going to worry about that part. But yes, measuring your own position on this stage is hard, and Zeku needs to be able to do it. The worst part about this for this matchup is, as mentioned before, sometimes you just want to kind of wiggle around and then Orochi, or wiggle around and then explicitly not Orochi. And these are also things where Zeku kind of really needs to be able to tell what is happening, but often cannot. Because in other stages, you have at least some level of balance of seeing something when your opponent makes a large movement across the stage. But you don't actually know how far Orochi is going to go. That's somewhat up to Karin. So until you can recognize that in really quick fashion, you are in danger. You can see the response to this is obviously stay in the air as much as possible so they don't have to deal with it. But Karin has enough ways of dealing with that, you know, you just adapt around it. In fact, the fact that Zeku is forced to play this way is exactly what Karin wants, which is why I was saying at the beginning, it's hard to say that this was a good or specifically bad stage. The opponent has put themselves in just as much danger by choosing it. Just had the meter in time from the Mujitaku itself to do the answer Senha for the finish.
You win.
So, no blow up, but we are into third match. And therefore, definitely, this is the last match of the night. We have been working on our Melty Bot. Specifically, the prototype we gave was not really pushed much further. We probably are going to turn that into Kohaku Bot at some point, but not really sure that it works well for Koma, Miyako, etc. We're still willing to push on those with minor changes though. Separately, we were working on Nullbot, which is the equivalent of Mikali Bot, just there to help you get used to punishes and initial things and probably anti-airing. Now, these things are more complicated in Melty Blood, but we managed to come up with something that will probably help. Yeah, this was probably not a good stage for them to choose to fight our particular Karin on. For this to work, you have to be able to see. And she is, for various reasons that I won't get into, much better at seeing under these conditions than most people.
You win.
So now that Heights has been brought low, as always, you can catch our content usually on Mondays for Street Fighter V. We're not exactly sure when we're going to start playing Melty Blood or when we will get back to playing Dead or Alive. But hopefully this week I will have gotten enough of the Melty Bot done. I'm really trying to make the inputs more user-friendly because input 1 is not. And I can't do too much about it. But overall, this has been really in for Team 2MK. Good luck with your training and good night, everyone.